The desperate plea captain Jake Morrison stood at the observation deck of the trading station New Haven, watching the endless stream of ships docking and departing. The galaxy had become a harsh place since the Galactic Trade War ended 3 years ago. Refugees flooded every station, every colony, looking for work, shelter, or just a chance to survive another day. That's when he saw them. A tall, blue-skinned Zelani woman and her young daughter, maybe 8 years old, standing near the cargo bay entrance. The woman held a small data pad with shaking hands, approaching every ship captain who passed by. One after another, they turned away without even listening. Jake had seen enough desperation in his lifetime. As a freight captain running supplies between the Outer Rim colonies, he'd witnessed the aftermath of the war firsthand. Entire worlds stripped of resources, families torn apart, species driven to the edge of extinction. But something about this pair made him pause. The little girl tugged at her mother's worn dress and pointed toward Jake's ship, the Iron Will. Her mother shook her head, but the child insisted. They walked slowly toward him, the woman's eyes downcast, shoulders heavy with the weight of countless rejections. "Captain," the woman said in accented standard, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please, just one moment of your time." Jake turned to face them fully. The woman was thin, too thin, with the hollow look of someone who'd given her food to her child too many times. The little girl clutched a small handmade doll, her bright yellow eyes darting between Jake and her mother. "I am Vexia," the woman continued. "This is my daughter, Nima. We seek passage to the Kepler colonies. I have no credits, no valuable cargo to trade." She paused, gathering courage. "But I can clean your ship, maintain life support systems, prepare meals. My mother taught me these skills before the war took our world. Please, Captain, we have nowhere else to go." Jake studied them for a long moment. The freight business was competitive, and taking on passengers without payment was financial suicide. His crew already thought he was too soft-hearted for the job. But looking at this mother desperately trying to provide for her child, he remembered his own childhood. His mother had cleaned starship galleys to keep food on their table after his father died in the mining accident. "What happened to your homeworld?" Jake asked gently. Vexia's eyes filled with unshed tears. "Zephyria was strip-mined by the consortium. They took everything: our crystals, our water, even our soil. Those who couldn't pay the exit taxes were left to die on a barren rock." She straightened slightly. "I saved enough to get us this far, but no further." The little girl Nima stepped forward. "My mama makes the best Kalara soup in the galaxy," she said proudly. "And she can fix broken things. She fixed our neighbor's air purifier with just spare wire and patience." Jake crouched down to Nima's eye level. "Is that so? Well, my ship could use someone good with repairs." He stood, then looked at Vexia. "The journey to Kepler takes 3 weeks. In exchange for passage, you maintain my galley, assist with basic repairs, and keep the common areas clean. Fair deal?" Vexia stared at him in disbelief. "You would truly take us? Just for cleaning and cooking?" "Everyone deserves a chance to start over," Jake replied simply. "Welcome aboard the Iron Will." As they gathered their few belongings, Jake's first officer, Rodriguez, approached with a frown. "Captain, we barely break even on these runs as is." "Taking on charity cases." "Rodriguez," Jake interrupted. "Sometimes doing what's right is more valuable than credits. Besides, have you tasted the galley food lately? We could use an upgrade." That evening, as the Iron Will prepared for departure, Jake found Vexia in the galley, already organizing supplies with practiced efficiency. The space hadn't been this clean in months. "Captain Morrison," she said softly, "I will not forget this kindness. Neither will my daughter." Jake nodded, watching through the porthole as New Haven grew smaller in the distance. He didn't know it yet, But this simple act of compassion would set in motion events that would change not just their lives, but the fate of the entire Kepler system. Skills beyond expectations. 3 days into their journey, Jake realized he had severely underestimated his new passengers. Vexia wasn't just a good cook and cleaner, she was extraordinary. The galley had been transformed into something resembling a professional kitchen, and the meals she prepared were better than anything they'd eaten in the Outer Rim. But it was her technical skills that truly impressed the crew. When the water recycling system began malfunctioning, showing signs of complete failure, Jake was preparing to make an emergency stop at the nearest station for expensive repairs. Instead, Vexia quietly asked permission to examine the system. "My mother was an environmental engineer," she explained, her hands already working on the access panel. "She taught me that all systems follow the same basic principles: input, process, output. The trick is finding where the process breaks down." Jake watched in amazement as she diagnosed the problem within minutes. A critical filter had become clogged with mineral deposits, causing a cascade failure in the purification chambers. Using nothing but spare parts from the maintenance locker and a creative rerouting of the circulation pumps, she had the system running better than new within hours. "Where did you learn to work with human technology?" Rodriguez asked, his earlier skepticism replaced by genuine curiosity. "Desperation is a powerful teacher," Vexia replied simply. "After the consortium destroyed our infrastructure, we had to adapt or die. Zelani technology and human technology aren't so different. Both require careful maintenance and understanding." Meanwhile, little Nima had become the ship's unofficial morale officer. Her innocent questions and boundless curiosity brought smiles to the faces of even the gruffest crew members. She helped in the galley, carefully stirring pots under her mother's watchful eye, and listened with rapt attention as the engineers explained how the ship's systems worked. "Mama," Nima said one evening as they shared dinner in the common area, "Captain Jake's ship is lonely. It makes sad sounds at night." Jake paused mid-bite. "What kind of sad sounds?" "The walls hum differently when they're not happy," Nima explained, matter-of-factly. "Like when our house was sick before it stopped working." Vexia frowned thoughtfully. Nima has always been sensitive to mechanical rhythms. Even as a baby, she could tell when our atmospheric processors needed maintenance. That night, Jake found himself listening more carefully to his ship. The Iron Will was old, nearly 40 years of faithful service, and he'd grown so accustomed to her sounds that he rarely noticed the subtle changes anymore. But following Nima around the ship, he began to hear what she heard: minute variations in the engine harmonics, slight irregularities in the ventilation system, the early warning signs of components starting to wear. "Your daughter has quite a gift," he told Vexia as they watched Nima sleeping peacefully in her small bunk. "Zelani children often develop technical intuition early," Vexia explained quietly. "Our society depended on understanding our symbiotic relationship with our machines. Before the war, Nima would have been trained as a systems harmonist, one who keeps the balance between organic life and mechanical function. And now?" Vexia's expression grew sad. "Now she's a refugee who will likely grow up knowing only that machines break and must be fixed, rather than understanding how they can truly live in harmony with their users." Jake made a decision that surprised even himself. What if she didn't have to lose that knowledge? What if someone taught her how human systems work, how to apply her gift to keep ships healthy and crews safe? Over the following days, Jake began including Nima in his routine maintenance checks. Her observations proved invaluable. She could detect problems days before conventional diagnostics would catch them. Under her mother's guidance and Jake's protection, she began to understand that her gift wasn't just useful, but vital. The crew initially thought Jake had gone soft, but as Vexia's skills kept saving them time and money on repairs, and Nima's Insights prevented what could have been costly breakdowns. Their attitudes shifted from tolerance to genuine appreciation. "Captain," Rodriguez admitted during their weekly officers' meeting, "I don't know how we managed without them. The ship's running better than she has in years." But Jake was beginning to suspect their journey would be more complicated than a simple passenger run. He'd noticed unusual ship movements on their long-range sensors, vessels that seemed to be shadowing their route. The outer rim had become dangerous, with pirate groups and desperate scavengers targeting freight ships as they approached the halfway point of their journey. Jake couldn't shake the feeling that their real test was still ahead. Whatever challenges awaited them in the void between stars, he was grateful to have Vexia and Nima aboard. Their skills might prove to be exactly what his ship and crew needed to survive. The ambush that attack came without warning during the ship's night cycle. Alarms shrieked through the corridors as the Iron Will lurched violently to starboard. Jake rolled out of his bunk, already reaching for his emergency kit as the lights flickered between normal illumination and emergency red. "All hands to stations." Rodriguez's voice crackled over the comm. "We've got 3 bogies closing fast. They're jamming our communications and demanding we prepare for boarding." Jake rushed to the bridge, his mind racing through options. The Iron Will was a freight hauler, not a warship. Her shields were designed to deflect cosmic debris, not military-grade weapons. In a straight fight, they wouldn't last 10 minutes. Against a coordinated pirate attack. "Status report," he barked as he slid into the captain's chair. 3 modified corvettes, probably Helix Syndicate by their attack pattern. Chief Engineer Kowalski reported. "They're boxing us in, trying to force us to stop. No way to outrun them with our current engine configuration." Jake's jaw tightened. The Helix Syndicate was notorious for taking ships intact when possible, selling the cargo and either ransoming the crew or pressing them into service. But they had a reputation for eliminating anyone who might cause trouble. A harsh voice cut through the static on the emergency channel. "Freight vessel Iron Will, you will power down your engines and prepare for inspection. Comply immediately, or we will disable your ship and take what we want from the wreckage." "Captain." Vexia's voice came from the doorway, calm despite the chaos around them. "May I speak with you privately?" Jake glanced at her, noting that Nima stood close behind her mother, eyes wide but not panicking. "We're kind of busy right now, Vexia. I understand. But I believe I can help." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to an urgent whisper. "Zalani ships used adaptive camouflage systems during the war. If your ship has the right components, I might be able to create a temporary stealth field." Rodriguez turned in his chair. "Stealth tech on a freight hauler? That's impossible." "Not stealth exactly," Vexia explained quickly, "but I can manipulate your energy signatures to make the ship appear disabled while maintaining minimal life support and maneuvering capability. It requires rerouting power through the environmental systems in a very specific pattern." Jake stared at her. "You're talking about fooling military-grade sensors." "Yes, but it will only work if they believe we're actually disabled." "Someone would need to transmit a convincing distress signal, make it appear that our main systems have failed catastrophically." Another impact shook the ship as warning shots bracketed their position. Jake made his decision. "Rodriguez, transmit a general distress signal. Tell them our main reactor is fluctuating and we're attempting emergency shutdown to prevent a containment breach. Kowalski, give Vexia whatever access she needs to the power grid." "Captain," Kowalski protested, "if she makes a mistake, she could actually shut down our life support. If we don't try something, we're dead anyway." Jake turned to Vexia. "How long do you need?" 10 minutes to reconfigure the power routing, another 5 to establish the masking field. She was already moving toward the engineering station. "But Captain, the ship will be very vulnerable during the transition." If they scan us directly during the setup phase, they'll detect the deception. Jake nodded grimly and opened the CUM channel. Helix vessels, this is Captain Morrison. We're experiencing critical reactor instability. Attempting emergency shutdown to prevent cascade failure. Request immediate assistance with evacuation procedures. The response came quickly. Negative iron will. Maintain current position. We're detecting unusual energy fluctuations from your ship. Any attempt at deception will result in immediate destruction. Jake felt sweat beading on his forehead as Vexia worked with desperate efficiency at the engineering console. Her fingers flew over the controls, rerouting power conduits with a precision that spoke of deep understanding. Nima stood beside her, quietly pointing out status indicators that her mother couldn't see from her position. "Mama, the blue light is getting angry again," Nima whispered. "I see it, little star. Can you tell me which way it wants to flow?" Nima tilted her head, listening to sounds only she could hear. Backward, then sideways, then sleeping. Vexia's hands moved confidently over the controls, following her daughter's guidance. 8 more minutes, Captain. The pirates were growing impatient. "Final warning, Iron Will. Cut your engines and prepare for boarding, or we start shooting to disable." Helix ships were venting plasma from the reactor housing. Jake improvised desperately. Any weapons fire could trigger a containment breach. You'd be vaporized along with us. It was a bluff, but it bought them precious time. Through the bridge viewports, Jake could see the pirate ships maintaining their distance, their captains presumably debating whether the risk was worth the potential cargo. 5 more minutes, Vexia called out, her voice strained with concentration. That's when everything went wrong. One of the pirate vessels, apparently deciding the Iron Will was stalling, opened fire with a targeted electromagnetic pulse designed to disable their engines. Without triggering a reactor breach, the EMP wave hit just as Vexia was implementing the final phase of her stealth configuration. Sparks flew from overloaded circuits. The lights died completely, and for a terrifying moment, even the emergency power failed. In the darkness, Jake heard Nima's small voice. "Mama, I can fix it. The ship is scared, but I know how to make it." Brave again. The turning point in the pitch-black bridge, emergency lighting slowly flickered to life, casting eerie red shadows across the crew's faces. The EMP had fried several key systems, but Vexia's partial stealth configuration had created an unexpected side effect: the pirates. Sensors were now reading conflicting data from the Iron Will. "Status report," Jake called out, his voice steady. "Despite the chaos, primary navigation is down. Communications are spotty, but life support is holding," Kowalski reported. "Whatever Vexia did to the power grid, it's actually protecting some of our systems from the EMP aftereffects." Nima had moved to a maintenance panel near the bridge entrance. Her small hands worked with surprising confidence, rerouting backup power through circuits that most engineers would never think to use. "Nima, what are you doing?" Jake asked, moving toward her. "The ship is hurt, but not broken," she explained, her yellow eyes reflecting the emergency lights. "Like when I had a fever, but wasn't really sick. The bad energy just confused her systems. I'm showing her how to remember what she's supposed to do." As if responding to the child's touch, systems throughout the ship began coming back online. Not all at once, but in a careful sequence that maximized efficiency while minimizing the strain on the damaged power grid. Vexia looked up from her console, amazement clear on her face. "Nima is implementing a progressive restart protocol. I didn't teach her that. She's intuiting it from the ship's responses." "Captain," Rodriguez called urgently, "the pirates are moving. Looks like they bought our story about being disabled. But they're sending a boarding shuttle." Jake felt a cold knot forming in his stomach. Once the pirates were aboard, the situation would become much more complicated. Worse, they'd discover Vexia and Nima, and Zalani refugees would be valuable. Prizes for the slave markets. How long until the shuttle docks? He asked. 6 minutes, maybe 7. Vexia stood suddenly, decision crystallizing in her expression. Captain, if I can complete the stealth field configuration, we might be able to slip away while their shuttle is en route. But it requires channeling all our remaining power through the environmental systems. We'd have only life support and minimal maneuvering thrusters. That's suicide, Kowalski protested. Without main engines, we'd be dead in space if something goes wrong. We're dead anyway if they board us, Jake replied grimly. Do it. What happened next would become the stuff of legend among freight runners in the Outer Rim. Working together. With an almost supernatural coordination, Vexia and Nema began implementing a stealth protocol that existed nowhere in human technical manuals. It was pure Zelani innovation, adapted on the fly to work with human technology. Nema seemed to sense the ship's responses before the instruments could display them, guiding her mother's adjustments with whispered observations about which systems were happy or tired or confused. Together, they created a masking field that made the iron will fade from the pirates' sensors like a ghost dissolving into darkness. The pirates' shuttle, expecting to dock with a disabled freighter, found empty space. Their confused communications. Chatter filled the emergency channels as they searched frantically for their missing prey. Where the hell did they go? One pirate captain demanded. Impossible, another replied. Ships don't just vanish. Keep scanning. But the Iron Will was already limping away on minimal thrusters, her energy signature so faint that she registered as nothing more than cosmic background radiation. Jake held his breath as they drifted past the searching pirate vessels, close. Enough to see the weapon arrays, but invisible to their sensors. It took 4 hours to reach minimum safe distance, moving like a wounded animal through the darkness of space. Only when they were certain the pirates had given up the search did Vexia begin restoring normal power to the ship's systems. How did you know that would work? Jake asked as the main engines finally rumbled back to life.